Alright, welcome back to the New Sentinel. I'm Chukwuka, and as always, joining me in the foxhole are Major Graves, Olga Ivanova, and Duke Johnson. You heard the title. Today, we're shining a big, glaring light on the shadowy world of private military companies. Wagner, Blackwater, all these names that pop up in the news, but barely get explained. So, what's fueling their rise? Let's dig in.
Yeah, so you want to talk about PMCs? First time I ever tangled with them was back in Iraq, 2005. Suddenly, we'd see these guys rolling in armored SUVs, kitted out, not under our command, moving with, let's just say, attitude. I remember thinking, who the hell are these cowboys? And then folks start whispering, Blackwater. What was wild, they weren't under the same ROE, no chain of command we could check. That's a different kind of animal, man. You could see how the chaos of places like Iraq and now Syria, or even those conflict zones in Africa, that's like prime time for PMCs to swoop in and scoop up contracts.
Duke, I must jump in. Every year, the world relies more on these private forces because states want deniability. It's about cutting costs, yes, but also about shifting blame, da? Wagner in Ukraine, in Syria, in Africa, they are not just soldiers for hire, they are tools for states to avoid messy accountability. I saw in my reporting, especially in Central African Republic, PMCs were more than guns. They were part of the politics and even the resource extraction.
She's got a point. Contractors, they don't just show up. They fill these gaps where the regular military's either overstretched or where states want to keep things unofficial. I've been reading Wagner's playbook in Africa, and if you take the chessboard view, it's about maneuvering assets with less risk of blowback. But I'll tell you, as a soldier, having another force out there, often without clear rules, changes the whole dynamic. It's like playing chess when your opponent can move twice per turn.
And let's not forget the explosion of conflicts, like in Syria, where ground operations got muddy, or in Ukraine with hybrid stuff, has just made PMCs the go-to for both state actors and sometimes corporations. The old days of mercenaries are long gone. These are organized, multinational outfits now, with logistics, procurement, you name it. But we can't talk about their rise without asking, is it progress or are we just outsourcing problems? I mean, Duke, did you ever feel like they were helpful or mostly just unpredictable?
Mostly unpredictable, man. Like great in a pinch for site security or something, but you never knew whose agenda they were pushing. And sometimes, their presence made our job a hell of a lot harder. Especially when, stuff went sideways, and suddenly no one was responsible. You start realizing real quick this ain't the regular playbook.
That's exactly where the ethics come in. Do we want wars to be outsourced to people whose loyalty is to the paycheck, not any constitution or the people caught in the crossfire? In my work, people on the ground often could not even tell who was fighting whom. I worry it is the new norm. We are, as a world, becoming comfortable with invisible armies.
Yeah, and it's getting harder to keep track of who the real players are. Reminds me of a line from chess. Just because you can put a piece anywhere on the board doesn't mean you should.
This segues us right into the legal mess. I always say, if you can't define the boundaries, someone's gonna run wild. PMCs thrive in those blurry lines. Look, let's break it down. The Montreux document tries to lay out best practices, but there's no real teeth. There's no global agreement, no enforcement body. So who actually keeps these companies in check?
I mean, take Blackwater, 2007, Nisour Square, Baghdad. Civilians killed, the fallout was massive. U.S. courts got involved, but even then it dragged on for years. The contractors got pardons in the end. It's like we keep playing this legal chess game. Every time the law catches up, they find another loophole, another jurisdiction. Sometimes I wonder if that's by design.
Of course it is, Ethan. PMCs are like water. They flow wherever the cracks are. And sadly, those cracks are everywhere. The lack of global rules allows PMCs to jump from country to country, exploiting differences in oversight. And each scandal, Nisour, Wagner in Syria, you name it, just reveals how unprepared the world is to hold them responsible. Victims never see justice. It's always just under investigation.
Gotta be honest, I'm not sure there's a fix. As long as governments see PMCs as, useful deniability, they won't push too hard for rules that actually bind these contracts. And, sorry, I always mix this up. Montreux. Wait, which is it? Anyway, without teeth, it's just paperwork. No disrespect, but paperwork doesn't protect civilians.
You nailed it, Duke. It's about legal loopholes, pure and simple. Say you're a PMC, you base your HQ in one country for the tax break, train in another for the weak oversight, and run missions in a third that's too chaotic to investigate. By the time someone tries to prosecute, the evidence is cold. And, I might be wrong here, but wasn't Wagner specifically using all these shell companies to dodge accountability?
Absolutely, Chukwuka. Wagner, Blackwater, and others, they operate these networks of shell entities, making prosecution an endless maze. Even when there are international efforts to close the gaps, enforcement is so slow, and meanwhile, abuses continue. I talk to so many families who just want answers, but all they get are dead ends.
And it's not just about international rules. It's about what countries are willing to let slide. Some states are happy to just look away as long as someone else is doing the dirty work. Makes for a nasty combination of legal ambiguity and real-world consequences. It's like setting up a chessboard with invisible pieces. Good luck playing fair.
On the ground, it's simple. No badge, no name tag, no oversight. If a regular troop screws up, there's accountability. With PMCs, there's just a lot of finger-pointing, and maybe a press release. That's the real gray zone. Not just legal stuff, but boots-on-the-ground reality.
Let's talk about what this all means for tomorrow. I mean, even just from following the news in Mali and Libya. Anyone notice how PMCs are now key power players instead of just support? They're shaping conflicts, not just fighting in them. What do you think that means for state sovereignty?
Chukwuka, it is terrifying. When PMCs become arbiters of power, states lose control. I saw this in Mali during my investigation. Villages near PMC-controlled zones. People disappeared, nobody to call for help. States say they are in charge, but really, it's these private armies dictating what happens on the ground. If human rights are ignored, the future is very dark for those already vulnerable.
Olga's right. I've seen this play out. A PMC's loyalty goes to whoever signs their checks. You want plausible deniability? This is it, especially in weak states. And let's be real, the more these outfits grow, the blurrier the line between official and off the books gets. Wouldn't be surprised if, in the next big war, half the boots on the ground answer to a boardroom, not a government.
From a strategy standpoint, it's like the whole playing field's changing. If everyone's got their own private army, warfare stops being nation versus nation. It turns into companies fighting companies. Contracts defining tactics. The chain of command breaks down. And not to get too apocalyptic, but history shows us, when mercenaries start running the show, stability goes out the window. We talked a bit about this in our episode on AI warfare. The tech may change, but the accountability gap just keeps getting wider.
If I may, a personal story. A few years ago, near Tripoli, I was investigating a string of missing persons, locals and migrants both. Families spoke of checkpoints controlled by unknown uniforms. Only later, through much digging, did we find links to a private military group working there. These people, they have no recourse, no badge numbers, no names. And still, nobody answers for their pain. My hope is that with more attention, there can be pressure for real change, but honestly, right now, it is still just shadows.
It's sobering and, frankly, the implications are huge for the whole world. PMCs aren't just a symptom, they're becoming the system. And if we don't get a grip, legally, ethically, and politically, this shadow army problem only gets worse. But that's why we'll keep putting a spotlight on it. Major, any last words on the future of security before we wrap?
Just this. Don't assume the rules will catch up on their own. History's full of lessons where unchecked actors change the game, adapt or get left behind, and that goes for lawmakers as much as for soldiers and citizens.
Yep, stay frosty. If you think this is just someone else's problem, think again. Private soldiers, private wars, the lines keep moving. If you're not paying attention, you're already behind.
Thank you for having this difficult talk. I hope for more future episodes where we bring in even more voices from the communities most affected. It is their stories we must keep telling.
Absolutely. This has been The New Sentinel. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back soon with another episode breaking down the world's gray zones. Take care of yourselves and each other. Olga, Ethan, Duke, pleasure as always. Until next time, cheerio.
Always a pleasure. Y'all take it easy.
Goodbye, friends. Stay curious.
Till next time, Johnson out.